Now, clearing land and wrenching on stuff and breaking down and building ponds and all sorts of stuff like that and pastures, that's a huge challenge too. But I think the biggest challenge in my world is dealing with people and interacting with people.
Welcome back to the Steel and Dirt Podcast. This is where we're bringing you experts and entrepreneurs on the show. We talk about equipment, we talk about construction businesses, but today we have a unique guest. This is Josh Draper, who runs Stony Ridge Farm. It's a 150-acre regenerative, I can't even say that word, regenerative farm project in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Not too far from me, actually, which is kind of neat. For those who aren't already familiar with that, Josh has got a very super interesting and heavily followed YouTube channel where he shows off a lot of equipment and unique projects for things that are going on at his farm. So welcome to the show, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's awesome.
It's great to have you. Your channel, I had a chance to check it out last night for a little while, and next thing I knew, an hour had passed. The video I watched where the tractor was turning the wrong direction on the steering wheel, that was fun to watch. But it sounds like to me your life is just as entertaining as the channel. If everything I read about you is true, your journey of growing up on a farm, you were in the Air Force, running your own construction business, and where you are now, kind of tell us how all that got started.
Yeah, so, I always had an aptitude for working with my hands, and I guess I took that aptitude to many, many places in my life. I was also a sheriff's deputy for a little while too. So I basically starting out, man, you wouldn't think of this if you watch the YouTube channel or it's on Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff, Reddit and Instagram, all that stuff. But if you watch and even TikTok, if you watch the channel, you'll see me out there working and wrenching on stuff. And you'll see me in here in the kitchen making creme brulee and cooking steaks and stuff. So you've got just a wide variety of things. I grew up in the country. I grew up on about a 300-acre farm. We didn't farm to the extent that I'm farming, I guess. We kind of homesteaded. We had a U-picket garden, and we grew that every year. And we had cows and pigs and chickens. We raised a couple hogs every year. And Dad used to sell ham biscuits. Mom would get up early in the morning and make ham and sausage biscuits, and Dad would take them to work and sell them. And just grew up that country way. That kind of translated into being good with my hands. And this is where you think, this guy's not a farmer. I did custom car stereo installation as a teenager. And that kind of led me into what I started doing in the Air Force, which was I was an electrician. So I didn't work on the jets. I worked on the power lines overhead, airfield lighting. I worked on the interior office stuff. And that gave me the opportunity to meet so many people from so many different trades. So I worked in a shop with the sheet metal guys and with the HVAC guys and the plumbers and the carpenters and just all sorts of folks. I'm forgetting somebody. And I picked up those trades along the way. And when I got out of the Air Force, I started basically a handyman business. It was called Mr. Fix-It. And Mr. Fix-It put me through Mr. College. So I had my GI Bill and went back to school. Gosh, there's a whole lot that you probably don't know about here. So from there, as I started that handyman business, and what that led me to was a lot of people with distressed properties. And this was back in 2001, 2002, right after the craziness that went on at that point. And a lot of people were trying to get out from under their properties. And I was broke as a joke, man. I'll tell you, I remember like, I mean, this is how broke I was. I remember choosing whether to buy food or toilet paper. That's how broke I was. I lived in a mobile home park, and my business was doing fairly well. And I started running into folks with distressed property. So I started buying up houses. And by the time I was 23 years old, I owned 7 houses. And I started out just doing my own handyman stuff. And then anytime someone had a distressed property, I would buy it from them. And I just bought. And at that time I was living in Utah, put myself through school at that time with the residual income that came from having all those rental properties. So I'm a registered nurse, been a registered nurse for 15 years. I worked in the intensive care unit for 13 of those years, and managed to find a way to quit my job and start farming. So fast forward a little while, before the nurse thing, I was a sheriff's deputy when I first moved back. So I lived in Utah. I sold all my property. I moved back to Virginia, which is only, like, you can see Virginia from here, just a stone's throw away. And I grew up in Southwest Virginia in a very impoverished area, very poor area. And again, wrapped up my college, moved to the city, and I've even got a song about it. Moved to the city, found me a lady, told her I wanted to get back into farming. I lived literally downtown Greensboro, North Carolina, in a downtown apartment, walk out the door, restaurants, bars, all that stuff. And I started DJing. I started a DJ business. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a DJ. So I DJ'd and I did karaoke, and I did weddings and various bars and clubs and stuff like that, VFW, stuff like that. And that led me into the entertainment space that I'm in right now, along with the farm thing. So I moved from downtown, bought a little house, went in the backyard. I was like, man, I remember as a kid stepping on honeybees. And that's what spawned every bit of this. I remember stepping on honeybees when I was a kid, and I'm walking around in my backyard. I'm like, there are no honeybees. I haven't seen a honeybee in 15 years. So I took a class at my local ag center, started raising honeybees. That led me into gardening. That led me into an urban farm there in town on a third of an acre. And I was able to make a profit on a third of an acre. And I got married, told my wife before we got married, I'm looking to move to the country. I want to get closer to mama, and mama's right up the road. Mm-hmm. And so we started seeking out land, and we ended up buying about 200 acres here. And what you see now and what you see on the channel is not what it was. So if you look back 6 years ago, yeah. So that's the general story.
Fantastic. What a journey. What have you gotten better at by having the farm? Now, we're not talking about, the handyman stuff. This is things you've picked up since the farm started.
I've gotten better at spending money.
Absolutely. That's what a farm's for, right?
Yeah, I pretty much, I've learned a lot along the way, and I'll tell you, one of the biggest challenges, and we can all take this message home. I'm sure you know the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki, and multiple other books, The Attractor Factor, Cash Flow Quadrant, all sorts of different books. So what I've learned in my history and in building the farm is people skills matter the most. Being able to interact with people, that's what matters the most. And I find myself as a entertainer and teacher on social media, and a entertainer and teacher in the cow pasture too. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to deal with people and work with people and learn people has been the biggest challenge, and I still struggle with it to overcome. Now, clearing land and wrenching on stuff and breaking down and building ponds and all sorts of stuff like that, and pastures, that's a huge challenge too. But I think the biggest challenge in my world is dealing with people and interacting with people.
One of the things that, and you kind of touched on it there, that we like all the unique projects that we see around the farm. What's some of the most interesting or favorite projects you've done?
Well, I just built what I call the mega shop. I don't want to use my air quotes, but I'm going to use them. The mega shop. So I just put up I think every guy or gal dreams of having a large workspace, a place where they can be free to do the things that they love to do. So I just put up a 112 by 50 shop building. And inside that shop building, I'm going to have a workshop area, and I'll have a wood drying area for my wood that comes right off the sawmill down here. And I will have a barn dominium type home. So I'm building a butcher shop in there, a studio, much like what you have here, and wood stoves, a commercial kitchen where we can take a deer right off the farm and show folks how I do it. It's going to be different than everybody else does it. So that's it. That's my latest challenge.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying our show, and if you are, we would appreciate it if you would help us out. Crush that like button, hit the subscribe, and be sure notifications are on so you'll be notified whenever we release a new podcast, guide, or compilation. We appreciate the support, and now let's get back to the show. Now, I'm sure you've had to do a lot of, you were talking about land clearing, tree cutting, things like that. And you just mentioned, it sounds like you got a mini sawmill going on too. So tell us a little bit about that kind of stuff.
I do. That was a major source of tension in my marriage. But I had a really smart guy tell me that the thing that everyone should get as a wedding gift is a sawmill, because that will teach you, I mean, that will teach you how to work with your spouse. So we all know how to play with our spouses and our partners, but do we know how to work with them? So about 2.5 years ago, I picked up a Wood-Mizer LT40 bandsaw mill, and basically just mill up trees that are dead or diseased that are here on the farm. And that provides me with enough lumber to where I can build my fences, and I can do a lot of cool interior projects on the barn dominium house when I build it. I also tore down several buildings on the farm and saved all the logs. There were several log structures here, so all the logs are tucked away for future projects. But yeah, the sawmill, I do a segment called Sawmill Sundays, and we just cut into something and just see what it is. It's just beautiful. Sometimes we get a super huge surprise. Sometimes we hit a fork that was stuck in the fork of it, or a spoon. The thing I hit a butter knife one time that was stuck in the fork of a tree.
Wow.
That was not a good day.
Wow. Equipment wise, like out on your farm, which we've all, we got to have the tractor, we got to have this, but have you got any, other stuff you could tell us about that's really beneficial?
One of the most key tractors, aside from my big TYM, I've got a 110 horsepower tractor. One of the most handy little tools on the farm has been the Ventrac. I don't know if you've heard of Ventrac tractors, but they are a small articulating tractor that has 8 wheels. So in other words, it'll hold a very, very steep angle. And it has been instrumental in the design and build of the farm, because all around my fencing, and there was not a fence on this farm at all, and so far we have 3 miles of fence. All around the fencing, there's at least a 12-foot area that you can drive through, and I keep it maintained with that Ventrac tractor, along with mowing the yard and stuff like that. And it's good for driveway maintenance. I mean, I'll have to get you some footage of the Ventrac at work. I do some work for some neighbors that might be a little bit underprivileged, like fixing up their driveways and stuff. And it's that and the skid steer have been instrumental, aside from the farm tractors.
Yeah, I can imagine. I go rent skid steers at least once a year, and sometimes a mini excavator. I'm up on a hill, a bit of a hill where my house is, and it runs down to a creek. And boy, we get a lot of rain, and it washes out around your driveway and barns and all that. But over the last 8 to 10 years, you stay at it, you get control of it, where the water's going, and get it going where you need it to go. It just takes some time. But just part
That's
of
a
it.
take home. People don't understand that the water on a piece of property. When you buy a piece of land, think water. First of all, does it have water on the property, like a pond or a creek? Second of all, how steep is it, and where's the water going to go? So when you're buying a piece of land like what we have here, directly behind me right here, there were gullies that were 12 feet deep that I had to correct. So water. My house is in the wrong place. My house gets water underneath it.
Being out there on the farm, I know maintenance is important because of equipment and things. What are some of the issues you run into week after week on maintenance or repairs?
Just a lot of maintenance, really. And when I run into stuff, I tend to break things. So just a lot of maintenance. I was doing a live stream video about 3 months ago. I was out here in the skid steer, and when you're doing that, you're thinking about so many things. You're interacting with the viewers, and you're working, and you're moving. And I went over a rock, and as you know, on a skid loader, you can go over a little rock that's like this, and it will make it feel like the Dukes of Hazzard, like
yeah, absolutely.
So I yeehawed right into a new wiring harness.
Oh.
That was such a booger, man, to fix. And tracing down, I found the wire. I'm like wiggling it, cuts off, wiggle it, cuts on. And I finally just ordered a new wiring harness.
Yeah, that's not a lot of fun. Now,
Yeah,
what about trespassers? Is that a big issue for you, and how do you deal with that?
it's an issue. It's an issue in any rural area, I would say. I've
Hmm.
got 15 security cameras throughout the farm that I can pretty much visualize any and every part of the farm at any time. I have driveway monitors both in front of and behind my house where nobody has access to at all. So if I hear a ding dong, then I know, hey, something's back there behind the house. They
Hmm.
just walked by the driveway monitor, and I've got a monitor system that'll go up to a mile. So way, way out there, I can pick people up. So in fact, I just got back from Montana, went out there with the Honda Power Sports with side by sides. And I watched the farm the whole time. I watched the cows. I was able to check on the place, make sure there's water in the water tanks, everything. So, uh, yeah, hunting season. If you own property, rural North Carolina and hunting season often means shooting a deer from the ditch on the side of the road.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
have those troubles sometimes, but I nip it in the bud pretty quick.
What would you tell someone listening that they've been watching your channel and they say, "Man, I want to go out and start a farm project like this." What would be your advice to them?
Well, make sure first of all that your significant other is on board and understands the magnitude of a project like this. It is a huge, huge project. I watch a lot of YouTube videos really about land management, and that's a lot of what I do here is like teach people how I maintain my pond and teach people how I clear land, whether it's a forestry mulcher situation or whether we're pulling stumps out or both. So the best piece of advice I can give somebody is get your pockets ready because it's a vacuum of money. Start small, but if you don't have the opportunity, I mean, 200 acres, if you're in Wyoming, that's a hiccup. Around here, that's a lot of work. That's a big piece of land. So just be ready to be overwhelmed, and it's stressful. It really is stressful. Despite, it's fun, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. I have a fish pond over here. It's 2.5 acres. It's full of bass, and I haven't fished in it in 2 years. That's how busy you are.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, what about the future for you and Stony Ridge Farm? What big plans do you have coming up?
Well, I was on the phone, matter of fact, with a fella just now talking about how we direct market our beef. So we're getting to the point now. I had 45 cows and I took 10 cows to the market, and I learned a very valuable lesson. And oftentimes in our lives, very valuable lessons cost us a lot of money. So I took those cows to the market. They sold 10 cows. I brought home under right at $5,000, which was just horrible to me, thinking that I let these animals my animals have no chemicals involved in their lives. Okay. They just
Hmm.
have their minerals. They have cows on grass, and that's it. That's all. We'll give a tetanus shot when we get ready to castrate a cow. But
Hmm.
other than that, it's grass fed straight off the farm. There's no GMO, there's no corn. It's all natural. And I took those all natural cows and sold them at a market that's not all natural. So
Hmm.
um, we're learning right now. The next step in the journey is getting the butcher shop up and ready. I'll butcher my own animals there, but I'll have freezer beef and I'll be able to sell. We'll have an online marketplace where people can actually purchase the beef that they see out in these pastures and know that they were really raised with care and sustainably.
Neat. Very neat. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
when you were talking about the butcher part earlier, I wondered if that was going to play into this. Now, there's got to be some other great stories that you shouldn't tell, but maybe you could tell us anyway. We got to get one more good one.
Oh, a good story that I shouldn't tell. There's a lot more cussing that goes on off the channel, off of YouTube. Man, it's just, farm life can be frustrating. Cows
Hmm.
can be very, very frustrating. Slipping off the pond dam. I was putting rocks out on the pond dam, slipped off in the water, and I just went over my head in the water. And I should have got that on camera. How about leaning against the water tank? I leaned against the water tank and the electric fence at the same time with a wet leg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I thought it restarted my heart. And also, I have another channel, and it's called Stony Ridge Farmer Live Streams, or Stony Ridge Farmer Extra is what it's called. And, you know, I don't know that anyone else on earth is doing this, but every morning, 5 days a week, I'll go out with the camera and we'll live stream and we'll go move the cows. And I move the cows twice a day. So we take people along and we show them the animals and we show them the process, how everything works, the water, the grass, every single thing that they're doing. So along with the videos, working and wrenching and cooking on the Traeger grill and all that stuff, we take you almost every day out in the cow pasture. And that's on Facebook and Stony Ridge Extra. Stony Ridge Farmer channel gets all the rest. So it's more than 200 pieces of content out there per month.
Hey, thanks again for joining us. Everybody, please go visit. This is Josh Draper. This is Stony Ridge Farmer, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great, man.